We're moving on to the skeletal system. The general functions of the skeletal system are the bones. They obviously provide support and protection. They support your ribs. Your ribs support and protect your lungs and your heart, and same as your skull with the brain. They allow body movement with the muscles. They, we've said that quite a few times, they do produce blood cells. This is called hemopoiesis. This takes place in the bone marrow, and they do also store those inorganic materials such as your salts, the calcium, and potassium. There are about 206 bones. Younger kids, they don't have all of their bones developed yet, especially babies, and they have more. And we talked about the two divisions. You have the axial, which is the dark red right here, and then the appendicular. The axial includes your head, your neck, and the trunk. They also include this hyoid bone. Your hyoid bone is right under your jawline. It's not really connected to anything else. It also includes your vertebral column in your thoracic cage, and then your sternum right here in the middle. All of that in that blue is going to be your axial skeleton. So there's a picture of your hyoid bone. Like I said, it's right underneath your jawline. Your appendicular skeleton are your limbs, but they're also the bones that connect the limbs to the axial skeleton. So you have your pectoral girdle, which is your scapula, your clavicle right here, which is your collarbone in your arms, and then your pelvic girdle, which are your coxal bones, which are your hips, and then your legs. And this right here is your coxa, which is still part of your axial skeleton. Bones can be classified because of their shape. There's 5 different types of bones because of their shape. First, you have your long bone, which is here in A. Examples of that would be your femur, your tibia, your fibula, your radius, your ulna, and your humerus. Short bones, those are more like they're cube-shaped. Those would be your carpals and tarsals, such as your ankles and wrists. Flat bones could be any of the bones in your skull, not your face, but your skull. Also your scapula, which is in your shoulder blade. Irregular bones, you have a lot of irregular bones in your face, but your vertebral column, all of your vertebrae are irregular bones. And then you have one sesamoid or round bone, and that is going to be your kneecap. Now I'm going to talk about the structure of a bone, but I'm really focusing on the structure of a long bone. All of the other bones don't have the same properties to it. So a long bone, you have 2 what are called epiphyses, and they are at the ends of long bones. You have a proximal and a distal epiphyse. It just depends on where the location is at. The shaft of the bone right here is called your diaphysis. You only have one of those. Now on the ends of your bones, and we talked about this a little bit when we talked about tissues, you have what is called articular cartilage. This articular cartilage is there to reduce the friction, so that you don't have that the rubbing on bones. It is hyaline cartilage. It's just found right here, and you can see that yellow right on top of the epiphysis. Now, surrounding the entire long bone is called the periosteum, and this is just a fibrous membrane, and it surrounds the entire. It's just kind of a layer of fibrous tissue that protects the entire bone. Here I was talking about the proximal and distal epiphysis. The epiphysis that is closest to the body is going to be your proximal, and the one that's furthest away would be your distal. So in this case, you can tell this is the femur because you can see the ball and socket joint to the hip. So this would be the proximal, and this one would be the knee joint. That would be your distal. The epiphyseal plate is another part of the long bone. This is where actually growth takes place, so it's also called the growth plate. So you can see this division between the epiphysis and the diaphysis. It's a layer of cartilage there, and ossification, which means it's bone formation, occurs there. Now you can see this x-ray, so if usually people don't stop growing until around 20, 25, obviously when you get older, in high school you begin to slow down. But you can always tell if you're still growing, because if you still have that growth plate that's some of that hyaline cartilage, then you're still growing. Now, when it becomes fully ossified, that means that growth has stopped. Now, inside of the long bone, you have what is called the medullary cavity, and this is a hollow chamber, and this is where the bone marrow is at. You can have two different types of marrow. You can have the red marrow, which makes your blood, or there's also yellow marrow, and this does kind of a couple jobs, but it does store some of the fat and things like that. Now, inside of the medullary cavity, you have a thin lining, and this is going to be called your endosteum.